Welcome back everyone to the video, and today we are continuing our tier list. The last episode was ranking all defenses heading into the 2024 NFL season, so if you guys are interested, go check that video out. Today it's ranking all running backs. This will likely be my first ranking on running backs this offseason, and probably only ranking on running backs this offseason. I have a lot of other videos planned. I want to do the offensive one again, I want to do quarterbacks again and receivers. And just, a lot of other stuff planned as well. So if you guys like NFL, basically anything related to the NFL, I cover pretty much everything related to the NFL. So subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate that. We do a lot of player rankings, a lot of team rankings, previews for teams. We do team recaps when the season's over. We do draft content, all kinds of stuff like that. I also have a second channel where I do videos on Madden 25 and College Football 25. So if you like that or either one of those games for that matter, go check that out as well. Links in the description. So for today's ranking, we have about 5 tiers. Well, not about. We have 5 tiers. We have S, A, B, C, and D. Now for each ranking, I don't have any like hard set rule for it. Like S tier doesn't have to be like 1,300 yards. It's just, it's fairly vague, but we do want to get these guys in a pretty realistic ballpark for the season we can kind of see them having. Be sure to comment down below any things you guys disagree with or agree with, either one of those, or who your favorite running back in the NFL is. But starting us off is Raheem Mostert. Now, here's the thing about this with Raheem Mostert. He is now in a good backfield with Devon Achane, and it's like, Mostert's not young, so he's going to start kind of declining. Achane's young. He has a lot of potential. His role should technically only be getting bigger. So I kind of think Mostert's going to go down to like a high B tier season. I don't think he's in the A tier. I think Devon Achane really takes the reins and has a big year. And actually, with that said, let's just skip ahead to him. He's going to go A tier. I would understand having him S tier. The only reason I don't have him in the S tier is because of the Dolphins' weapons. I think they're still going to pass the ball a whole lot to where I'm not sure if they could support an S tier running back. I think Achane has the talent to be an S tier running back. I also think the offense is going to run the ball enough for him to have like S tier numbers, if that makes sense. So I see Achane being a bit better than Mostert this year, with Achane being like an A to A plus and Mostert being like a B plus to an A minus, somewhere in there. Next player is Zach Moss. Now, he actually had a pretty good season for the Colts last year, and a season that was all over the place with them. I mean, they lost their franchise quarterback, or at least potential franchise quarterback, and then Taylor got hurt at some point too. But Moss stepped in there. He was pretty good. He now finds himself in Cincinnati. I'm going to put him in B tier because, for one, he's not a bad player. He can definitely contribute, and he is the running back 1 over, I believe, Chase Brown, a second-year player out of Illinois. So Moss, I think, is good, but similar to Mostert in this tier, he's in an offense that is pretty pass-heavy. I don't see Moss being a huge factor in the run game because I just don't think they're going to run the ball consistently enough for him to have a huge presence there. I think he'll be pretty solid when they actually run it, but have a pretty good impact in the receiving game as a receiving back. He's not bad, and you have at least one healthy, reliable quarterback in Joe Burrow. So we'll see how that goes. I have him B tier. Next is Nick Chubb, and this is kind of like, I don't want to say dumb, but like, we don't know how much he's going to play. Like, if he's a healthy Nick Chubb, he's like A to S tier. But if he doesn't play for the first like 6 weeks, and it doesn't really, so I might just make a new tier and put injured real quick because I don't feel good about ranking him. With that said, though, my thoughts on Nick Chubb, if he does come back and is healthy, a healthy Nick Chubb at this point in his career is still a not super young running back and coming off of a devastating knee injury. With that said, I just saw a video of him squatting like 600 pounds. So maybe nothing phases Nick Chubb since this is technically his second devastating career knee injury, and he's still pretty good up until now at least. With that said, he gets his very own tier just called injured because, like, is he injured? Is he not injured? I don't really know. Time will tell. Right now I think it's a bit too early. If he only misses like 3-4 weeks, he could still have like an A tier season, but again, there's a lot of variables in that, so we're just going to kind of play it safe there. Next is Jerome Ford. He's also going to go B tier. I see him as like a B plus to A minus running back. In my opinion, I think the Browns want to run the ball, especially when they have Nick Chubb in there. When Jerome Ford's in there, I don't think it's that they like don't want to run the ball, but at the same time, you're paying Deshaun Watson $230 million or whatever they restructured it to by now. Like, you're paying that guy a lot of money. You want to see him actually put up numbers. He really hasn't done that since being traded to Cleveland. You brought in Jerry Jeudy for wide receiver. You have Elijah Moore there now in his second year in Cleveland. You have Amari Cooper still, David Njoku. You have a pretty good passing offense. I don't see Ford being a huge focus and being higher than B tier. I think if anyone breaks B tier, it's Nick Chubb because he's just absolutely incredible. But if Nick Chubb isn't in there, I don't think Jerome Ford is a big enough incentive to take the ball out of Watson's hands when, like, you want to see this guy put up numbers. This is his third year in Cleveland now. He was suspended for the first year, injured last year. Like, this should be a year for Watson to take a big step if he's going to do it. Next is Najee Harris. Najee Harris is an interesting one because he had a not-so-good season in 2022, I believe. And then I think his rookie year is 2021, which he had a great year. He had a regression in 2022, and then I think he was, like, slow to start in 2020 and then finish strong, I think. If I got that right, I may have mixed up some years there. Regardless, Pittsburgh, I'm actually going to give Najee Harris an A tier, and that might seem like a big jump, but here's the thing. You lose Deontay Johnson, and in my opinion, that's a bigger loss than what's being said because you still have a bit of a question mark at quarterback. Yes, you have a proven veteran, but you don't know what Russ you're getting. Is he going to, bounce back? Is he going to fall back into his slump like his first year in Denver? There's not really any way of knowing that until it happens. And I think even if Russ does play pretty well, the Steelers have an excellent ground game. They're going to be running the ball. Pickens is your wide receiver 1. Second after that is it Roman Wilson? Is that really 2? I know you have Allen Robinson in there now as well. Or Allen Robinson. No, not Allen Robinson. He just left. You have the other Robinson, I can't remember what his first name is, in there as well. So I don't know. In my opinion, Harrison gets the ball a lot. I'm going to give him A tier. I think he has a much better year than last year. Well, at least much better year than 2022, and starts better than he did last year. And with that said, I'm going to give Warren a B tier because, again, I see these guys as 2 very solid running backs. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a great ground game. And, again, I see that being a focus of the offense. I don't think whether it's Russ or Wilson or Russ or Justin Fields in there that you want to, like, get super pass happy. I just don't think either quarterback's quite on that level. I think Russ has, he's just older. Like, the dude has had an amazing career. He's just not prime Russell Wilson anymore. That's okay. Fields, I think, is still a bit of a question mark because as a passer, at least, first year in Pittsburgh, who knows what's going to happen. Because of that, I see it being a very reliable ground game for them. Next is Joe Mixon, who is now in Houston. And this is like, you could give him B tier, but you could also probably drop him down to C tier because he is also an offense now that definitely wants to pass the ball. Mixon, unless he's running a route, is not going to be in there because he's not a good pass blocker. So, I don't know. This is kind of a tough one. You had a great running back with Dameon Pierce his rookie year. You didn't give him the ball much after that, and after you realized you wanted to pass the ball. So, is Mixon really going to put up, like, 900 yards? I don't really know. I'm going to put him in C tier. Might be a bit of a hot take, bad take. I don't really know. I think Mixon has good football left in him. I just don't think he's in an offense that's going to try and prioritize getting him the ball, and I can't really blame the Texans. And then with that said, next is Dameon Pierce, and I don't really know what to do with this. I think him and Mixon both are great running backs. I just don't think you're in a system now that's going to try and, make a point of getting you the ball, especially Dameon Pierce. Mixon is at least viable as a receiving back. Dameon Pierce is one of those, like, hard-nosed running backs who wants to get to the ball and just run through people. So I'm going to give him C tier as well. Maybe that makes more sense to put Mixon in B tier because it's impacting the receiving game, but I don't know if he's a B tier running back at this point in his career, to be honest. I think he was, like, last in broken tackles last year, or at least very close to it. Or maybe the Bengals as a team for the running backs were. I can't remember, but regardless, it wasn't good. So I'll leave them both in C tier. Next is Jonathan Taylor, who is going to go in A tier. Once again, I don't think he breaks into that S tier because, for one, you have Richardson back. With that, you can do a whole lot of options. So I do think Taylor will have the opportunity to, get plenty of reps. As the, running back 1, you're in a good offense where you'll get a lot of chances. But at the same time, they've developed that team a lot to have some pretty decent weapons there now. And you want to see what Richardson can do with his arm, because that's always been the question. We know he can run the ball. We know Taylor can run the ball, but we don't know if Richardson can consistently pass well at the NFL level. Personally, I think he'll be able to, but they still need to know that for a fact. So I don't think Taylor has the reps to break into S tier. And also, I do think his health is in question too, or at least, the possibility of him getting injured because he has got banged up a bit. So he'll go A tier. If you have an S tier, I get that too, but I'll leave him in A tier. Next is Travis Etienne. He's actually going to go in A tier. I think he's a great running back, although it has kind of been said now they want to get Tank Bigsby involved a bit more. So I think Etienne's going to be more of a receiving back. I'm not going to say he's not going to run the ball at all because that's not true. But I do think when you have another running back that's capable of being a great running back on the ground, like I think Tank Bigsby is capable of being, and there's no point in risking your starting running back who's huge in the receiving game. There's no point in risking him getting hurt running the ball to him too much, if that makes sense. So, especially in the Jaguars offense, I mean, you just drafted Brian Thomas Jr., you still have Christian Kirk, you have Evan Ingram. Like, you have an offense that's able to pass the ball. So, I think Etienne will get a lot of work in both the receiving and rushing game. I just don't think it's going to be as much in the rushing game, so he's going to be A tier. With that said, next is Tank Bigsby, and while I think he is going to get more work in the rushing game, I don't think it's enough to actually put him on the same level as like Mostert and Zach Moss and Jalen Warren and Jerome Ford. I think he's a bit more the same level as like Mixon and Pierce, just because of, for one, Mixon at this point in his career, Pierce with the workload, it's probably not going to be a whole lot, and so I do see him having a similar workload on the ground to Dameon Pierce. So Tank Bigsby's going C tier. Next is Tony Pollard. This is a really tough one to rank, at least in my opinion, because we've seen just how good Pollard can be. But now he's in the Titans, which has a ton of question marks. And it's like, is Pollard going to be like a really good dynamic running back in Tennessee? Are they going to try and pass the ball more with Levis? I don't really know. I'm going to play this one fairly safe and give him B tier. I don't think it's going to have that huge impact that we saw in Dallas, where it was like, man, he could be really, really good. Then he gets a starting role, and it's not that he did bad, but it was a bit underwhelming, especially in fantasy football. So I do think Tennessee will utilize him a lot. It does depend a lot on Will Levis to get him the ball in the receiving game, because that's kind of the other half of Pollard's game. He's a great receiving back too. So will Levis do that consistently? I don't know. I don't fully trust Will Levis yet. I think the potential is there, but we don't know if he can consistently get the ball to Pollard in the receiving game. In the rushing game, I think Pollard's great too. I think he can still be a good running back, but I see him more B tier. With that said, next is Tyjae Spears, who I'm going to put in C tier. That's kind of tough because Spears showed a lot of promise his rookie year just last year, but you made a move to get Pollard. Are you going to turn them run the ball a whole lot? I don't really know. I don't think the workload is there for him. I think he's a great running back. I don't think the opportunity is there right now. I think Tennessee has other things on their plate. Getting Levis just acclimated to the league and see what he can do, honestly. So I see him more C tier. Next is Javonte Williams. This is also a just kind of bizarre Broncos backfield because there's so many running backs back there. You have Javonte Williams, you have Samaje Perine, you have Jaleel McLaughlin, and you have Audric Estime. So it's like, is Perine going to stay there? Is he going to be good? Because he's a proven veteran who's pretty good in the receiving game. You have Williams, who was amazing his rookie year and then tore his ACL and had a bit of a regression last year. Then you have Jaleel McLaughlin, who came out of nowhere last year and was pretty good. And then you draft Audric Estime. So I don't know what to make of that Broncos backfield. And unfortunately, I don't see it being Javonte Williams' backfield to lose. I think he's going to have to compete with other guys. And unfortunately for him, Sean Payton just got a running back in Audric Estime. Do they give him a shot instead of Williams if Williams is struggling? You have Jaleel McLaughlin still there. You have Perine. There's a lot of other options. And if I'm ranking other guys like Bigsby and Pierce in C tier because of their potential workload or lack thereof, then I think Javonte Williams has to be in that tier for that same reason as well. Next is Isaiah Pacheco. I absolutely love Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's an awesome running back. He has just one of those like angry run archetypes. Like I don't know how else to say it, but you've seen him run. He just runs like he's stomping on the ground. He breaks a ton of tackles. He's a really, really good running back, and I actually see him getting a lot of work this year. I think he's capable of producing a lot with his workload. So he's going A tier. Plus he's in a great offense too. Next is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm gonna give him D tier. I don't just throw the D tier around to players too much, but I don't see him having even on the same level as like a Mixon year. He's just I think he's on the last year of his rookie contract anyway. I think they declined his 5th year. So, he's a decent running back. I don't think you're making an effort to get him the ball. He'll probably have a random 70-yard touchdown reception from Patrick Mahomes at some point. But other than that, I don't see a consistent year from him being very, very good. Next is Zamir White. So this is a tough one because we didn't see a ton of him last year, but to close last year, we did. In a small sample size, he looked to be pretty good. So now you're in a Raiders offense to where, you should be making an effort to make Devontae Williams happy, or Devontae Adams happy. And you sell Jacoby Myers, you draft Brock Bowers. You should be, making an effort to pass the ball. But again, I feel like Raiders football, you also you run the ball. So I think White's gonna get a lot of work. I'm gonna give him B tier. I haven't seen enough for me to give him A tier, but I do think he's a solid running back that will have a lot of opportunity this season. So he's gonna go B tier. Next is Alexander Mattison. And look, he was decent in Minnesota. He was not very good last year, specifically in Minnesota. Had a lot of fumble issues. This is like a D tier to C tier. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt just because I do think he's gonna get a decent amount of work. He is running back 2, so it's not like he's not gonna touch the field. I just don't think he's gonna be overly productive when he does. But again, this is someone that can probably get 3 to 4 touchdowns on just random, 15 yards out, he gets the edge and runs in kind of thing. So I'll give him C tier. Next is Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who both find themselves in L.A. Gus Edwards is going B tier. I think he's a very solid running back, and I think the Chargers will be making an effort to actually run the ball in an offense that is very questionable at receiver and tight end. You still have Herbert there, but I think at a certain point, the lack of talent at receiver is going to force you to have to put the ball on the ground to at least some degree. Edwards is a solid running back who I think will do a good job in his workload this season. While Dobbins, I'm kind of officially out on. I'm actually going to give him D tier. That might seem very harsh, but, we haven't seen a great J.K. Dobbins in, 3 years now? It's been a long time. He was great his rookie year, and then he tore his ACL, and then he tore his Achilles. So those are 2 devastating leg injuries. Really what you just do not want as an athlete at all. That's like bottom of the list for leg injuries, or ACL and Achilles injuries, and he's had both 2 years in a row. So he's far removed from the great J.K. Dobbins we saw in college and first year NFL. Unfortunately, I just feel like injuries derailed a very young and promising career. That might be kind of a depressing take on this, but I really don't see a whole lot for Dobbins, unfortunately. I would love for him to prove me wrong, but again, I hope he proves me wrong. He's going to go D tier, but again, I really do hope I'm wrong there. Next is Zeke, which is very weird. He's back in Dallas, which at this point in his career, and look, I love Zeke. He's one of my favorite players that I've got to watch in their prime. But this point in his career being a starter, I don't know about that. I'm gonna put him C tier, just because I think he can run. He can still put up numbers, I guess, relative to his ability at this point in his career. But you're in a Dallas offense that's gonna pass the ball. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Jake Ferguson, you have Brandon Cooks. You got some weapons. You're not making a point of giving Zeke the ball. So I don't know. He's going C tier. Next is Ramondre Stevenson. So Ramondre Stevenson had a really good year 2 years ago, and then last year kind of regressed. But that was a terrible Patriots team, and to be fair, I see the Patriots being pretty close to terrible this year too, but there's way different coaching in there, so I have a lot more faith in that offense and its ability to run. Even if it doesn't amount to a lot of games, I think it will still at least look fluid. Last year, it looked so discombobulated and just so dumb to watch. I don't think it looks like that this year. I think it looks a lot better. Steven's getting a B tier. I think Stevenson really, at his peak is probably an A tier running back. I just don't trust it quite yet there with Drake May and just a new offensive coaching. It's all kind of just all over the place. But he's still a great running back. He's proved that. I think he bounces back a bit. I'm going to give him B tier there. Next is Saquon. Now, this might be one where people are like, he's got to go S tier. And he's going to go A tier. He's not quite going to go S tier, at least for me. For one, just for the record, I'm trying to reserve S tier for, guys I think are going to have, absolute monster years. I just don't see Saquon having a monster year. Not because he's bad. He's in a phenomenal offense, which I think works 2 ways. First off, it works well because, he's able to get the ball a lot. and he can be trusted to do good things with the ball because he has a competent team around him, and you already know his skill level on his own. So he's in a good offense, he's in a good situation. But it works against him because he's in a good offense, they can also choose not to give him the ball as much, and they don't have to freak out because you do have A.J. Brown to pass the ball to. You do have Dallas Goedert. You do have Devontae Smith. You have Jalen Hurts' rushing ability. And Jalen Hurts gets a lot of goal line carries as well. So I think Saquon will have a good year, but I think it's easy to overrate just how good of a year because of the other options on that offense. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are not going anywhere. Like, their production is not going anywhere. If not, it's actually probably going to be a little bit better because last year, Brian Johnson, offensive coordinator, was just all over the place, was not very good at all. Now you have Kellen Moore. It should be a much better offense to where you get back on track to a similar offense to what you had in 2022 when you went to the Super Bowl, at least in my opinion. So I see Saquon having a great year. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see it being like a 1,000 rushing, like 1,200 rushing yard season with like 800 receiving yards. I think some people are projecting like a huge year for him. I don't see that big. I see him contributing a lot to a very good team and the team going very far. That's basically kind of how I see the Eagles offense as of right now. But Saquon's going A tier. Austin Eckler was awesome. At this point in his career, he's just going to go C tier for me. And look, I know it's weird because of the name. Like, you hear Austin Eckler, you think of this awesome dynamic running back. But, you can go back and watch him last year. That's not who we saw. I mean, there's one play specifically. I'm sure you guys have maybe even seen it. If not, just search like Austin Eckler slow running versus Green Bay Packers 2023 into Google or YouTube or whatever you want, and it will probably come up because he like broke free, gets the edge, and he just doesn't accelerate. Like, it would have been a touchdown 4 years ago. So unfortunately, it happens with running backs. They just don't have a super long prime a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times. Austin Eckler, I think, has had a great career, and it's a very respectable career, but I do think he's starting to decline. And you're in a Washington offense with a lot to figure out with the rookie quarterback. I don't see a huge year from him. He'll get some solid touchdowns, I think, and some good receiving plays here and there. Nothing to lean on. Brian Robinson, I actually think, is going to be the better running back in that offense. I'm giving him B tier. He had a great year last year, and I don't think it's talked about as enough as it probably should have been because Washington was just kind of a weird offense with, like, they passed the ball a lot, but it wasn't always good. Like, they turned the ball over a lot with Sam Howell in there, and it was just kind of, I don't know, it wasn't very good. But Brian Robinson, he had a good impact for them. I think he's a bit underrated in the receiving game, to be honest, and he's a good rusher, too. So he has two great traits, and he's still relatively young. So he's going to go B tier for me. Next is DeAndre Swift, who is actually going to go, I'm going to say A tier or B tier. I'm going to go B tier. I'm trying to reserve A tier for guys I'm like super confident. I'm not super confident in Swift because you have Caleb Williams in there, so I do think they'll lean on the running back if Williams struggles. I think he will to some degree because he will be a rookie. But you also have like DJ Moore, and you have Cole Kmet, Joe Everett, Keenan Allen. You got guys to pass the ball to. I don't think you brought Caleb Williams there to get the ball to DeAndre Swift. I think he'll be great. I think he'll be solid. I don't think he's going to be putting up a ton of yards. Like, I don't think he gets more than 1,100. So I don't know. He's going to go B tier. I think he have a very solid year, but I don't see much more than that because, like, this Bears offense should want to pass the ball. Next is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery is going to go B tier. I see him as a very solid running back. Not a whole lot more than that. I think Gibbs has a way higher ceiling at this point in his career, and I'm going to put Gibbs in A tier. But here's the thing. I could see him cracking S tier. It just depends on what the Lions offense is looking like this year. And I think depends a bit on David Montgomery. If he, like, falls off and they just throw Gibbs in there and he's getting, like, the bulk of the workload, then Gibbs could probably have enough production to get in the S tier. I already think in this season he's going to prove that he's one of the best dual-threat running backs in the entire NFL. I think he'll be able to do great in the receiving game and the rushing game. But, again, I'm trying to rank this kind of safe. So he's going to go A tier. I would not be surprised if he breaks into S tier, and in fact, if you have him ranked S tier, I see it. I don't disagree. Next is Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs is really interesting to me because he had a great season in 2022. 2023 wasn't as good, but you're on a sorry Raiders team, and I know he even made a comment of being like you guys are okay with losing, like referring to the Raiders as like why are you guys just like no fight almost. You're going to be in Green Bay now where you have Jordan Love, in my opinion, a very, very reliable quarterback. He's already he's already young. I think he's shown a ton of promise, a ton of development over just one season as well. I think Jacobs bounces back. I think he is on a winning team, and I think it's going to be a lot different for him, even just mentally, because you're winning games, you're doing well. You have more of an incentive to actually go out there and give it your all, because it's easy to get beaten down in teams that just aren't doing anything with no fight. And I think Jacobs, the Raiders are just not a good spot for him. I think Green Bay is a fresh start. I think he actually does very, very well in that offense. I think he does, I think his impact is definitely felt. So he's going A tier. AJ Dillon is like, I just can't decide. I think he's going to go C tier. Like, I think at one point he was probably B tier. I don't really think he's there as of right now. Maybe he proves me wrong, and if he does, I wouldn't be totally shocked. But I don't see enough to rank him B tier as of right now. I think the offense is going to be passing the ball a good bit. I think Jacobs is going to be getting a bulk of the carries. So, yeah. Next is Aaron Jones, who's in Minnesota right now. He's going to go A tier. A worry with him pretty much always is his health. He does tend to get banged up pretty often. But when he's healthy, he is really, really good. And he's now in an offense where you got a question mark at quarterback. Whether it's Darnold or McCarthy, you don't totally know what you're getting. And I think Jones is easy to lean on in the rushing game, but he's also easy to check the ball down to in the receiving game. He can really help out young quarterbacks because he's able to get open underneath and just be a reliable player for him. And that's what I see from Minnesota too. Again, this could be one of the more risky picks being an A tier, but for the record, I also have Jonathan Taylor in A tier, who's been a little unreliable the past couple seasons as well. So I don't know. Benefit of the doubt, he's an A tier. Next is Antonio Gibson, who is solid as a running back. He's a good rusher. He's pretty good in the receiving game, but he's going to go C tier for me. There's not really a reason for me to really just put him super high up there. He's in New England now. Yeah, you could help out Drake May in the receiving game, but not enough to have production on the level of guys in B tier, in my opinion. So, yeah, Gibson's going C tier. Next is Bijan Robinson, and Bijan Robinson is going to go S tier. Here's the thing about Bijan Robinson, at least for me, okay? As a Panthers fan, I absolutely hate he went to the Falcons. I wish they would have drafted anybody else right there that year. But as a football fan, I can't help but just love watching him play because he is so dynamic and so good at basically everything. He has great hands for a running back. He is super elusive. He can break tackles. He has good vision in the run and in the running game. He can do a little bit of everything. And in my opinion, that's still coming off a rookie year and an offense that was pretty dysfunctional. I think now with better coaching and a better quarterback, I think he's going to put up some crazy numbers. I really do. I think he's going to have a similar impact to Christian McCaffrey. And real quick, what I mean by that, I do not think they're on the same level of play per se. I think they're going to have similar levels, similar style of play, if that makes sense. Although I will say, I'm projecting a huge year for Bijan Robinson, and I'm not putting McCaffrey in A tier. So, actually, no, let's just skip ahead. I am putting him in S tier. And I know a second ago I said I don't see him on the same level, which, if we're being real, McCaffrey's probably on a level of his own, at least in my opinion, but the highest we have is S tier. So we're just going to put them both in S tier. For the record, I do see McCaffrey being better than Bijan Robinson. I do think he's even a level above him. But because it's the highest level, I have them both here. And I think both are similar types of running backs. And Bijan Robinson literally just said not too long ago that they are going to be able to utilize him similarly to the way San Francisco utilizes Christian McCaffrey. So I don't think it's too far out to say that. So I don't know. I guess just consider my bold prediction, of the video. But Bijan's going S tier. McCaffrey is obviously in S tier. Tyler Algier is actually going to go B tier. I think Algier is actually a pretty good running back. And it was actually I was surprised they took Bijan. I know he was, obviously amazing and he was worth that pick, but Algier had a rookie year, that draft. He was coming off a rookie season of 1,000 yards rushing. It's a 5th or 6th round pick. So it wasn't a need, but you made a really good backfield doing it. So, it sucks to see it's a Panthers fan, but yeah, that was good job by the Falcons there. Algier's great. I think he'll be good in the rushing game, like always. He does get a lot of goal line carries as well, which Bijan fantasy owners do not like very much. But Algier is a B tier running back in my opinion. Next is Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is going to go B tier. And He's, I think, pretty underrated because in Carolina, and Carolina is a complete joke. Like they're just a complete joke. But he was actually pretty good last year. He almost got to 1,000 yards in a very dysfunctional offense with terrible blocking. Uh, I think he showed a lot. Here's the thing, though. Rookie Jonathan Brooks, who the Panthers drafted, I actually see being in B tier as well. So here's what I'll say. I don't think the Panthers are going to support two B tier running backs. I'm going to leave them B tier right now. I want you guys to comment down below who you think is going to have a better season, Jonathan Brooks or Chuba Hubbard, because Brooks is, I think, already probably the better player. I mean, we haven't seen him yet, but he is really, really good. But he's coming off an ACL tear, which is always a little scary for running backs. So I have him in B tier. I think Brooks' ceiling is an A tier running back. I think Chuba's ceiling is probably a B tier running back. Maybe A tier, probably a bit lower. Like probably like a B plus, and Brooks is like an A or an A plus as a ceiling. So I'm going to leave them here. No, I do not think both of these guys will have a full season as being a B tier running back, but I can't decide which one to drop down to C. So let me know down below which one you guys would drop down to C. Next is Devin Singletary, who actually had a pretty good year for Houston last year. Now he is in New York. This is tough. I'm actually going to put Singletary as B tier because I think he's going to get a lot of work. I don't think that New York offense is going to be very good. You have Neighbors. Big drop off after Neighbors at receiver. I don't even know who their tight end is right now, which is a very casual statement, but I can't remember who it is. And I don't trust Daniel Jones, so I do see the running game having to be something that they actually lean on. And I think Singletary is a competent enough running back to handle that fairly well. I have him in B tier. Next is Alvin Kamara, who is going to be in A tier. He had a pretty good year last year. The Saints got a better offensive coordinator, in my opinion, so I do think the offense will be on a similar level. While I think the offense as a whole is quite mid, I do think Alvin Kamara is a good player. I don't think his impact in the rushing game is the same as it was in his prime, but he is a really good receiving back. He racks up the catches. I mean, he's a great player. He is definitely A tier. Jamal Williams is going D tier. And look, I love Jamal Williams. I think he's really funny. I think he's great. D tier. Like, he had a great season in Detroit. He had like 17 touchdowns or something like that. But now that you're in New Orleans, you didn't have a great year last year. Kamara is still the one. I see Kendre Miller, the same second-year running back, taking a big step, and him being the next guy up. I don't see a big enough year for Jamal Williams, unfortunately. He's going to go D tier. Next is Rachaad White, who is a great running back, and he's actually going to go A tier for me. I think he was quite solid last year. You're still in a pretty good Buccaneers offense with Baker Mayfield in there. I don't think his role was really going to go away. You drafted Bucky Irving, and I think that guy will still have a role, but not take reps away from Rachaad White. So he's going to stay in the A tier. And right now is where it gets kind of tough because James Conner, I'm going to put in A tier. I think some people can make a case for him to be an S tier because of his impact in the receiving game and the rushing game. I don't think it's going to be quite on that level. I still think it's going to be a great year, but not quite, like whatever I just said. Oh, yeah, big in the rushing and receiving game for being S tier. They also drafted Trey Benson, too. So it's like, you have a rookie running back there. You're going to be giving him some opportunities. I think Connor's awesome, but he's going to be in the A tier. And speaking of Trey Benson, he is next up. Here's the thing. Benson's going to go C tier for me because I don't think this is his year quite yet. I think next year he takes a big step, and then he's like a B to A tier running back. I think he's going to be really good in the NFL, just not quite yet. Connor, I think, is still the lead in that backfield, and he's still really good. Unless Connor goes down, then I could see him going B tier or maybe even A tier. But Trey Benson, for me, is going to go C tier. Next is Kyren Williams, and Williams is going to go S tier for me. I'm a big fan of Kyren Williams because I think he is awesome. He stepped up huge last year as a rookie. He missed like, 6 games, 5, 6, 7 games, and he still got 1,000 yards rushing, which is crazy to do, especially as a rookie. He's in an awesome offense still. I don't think there's any reason for me not to put him S tier. I should probably show the S tier while I'm talking about it. I'm just dumb. So yeah, he's going to go S tier for me. I think he's awesome. I don't think he gets any worse this year. Next up is Breece Hall, who's also going to go S tier for me. Breece Hall, I think, is a phenomenal running back. You're in a bad offense the past few years. I mean, not bad, just very underwhelming, very dysfunctional. Still puts up great numbers. Came back off the ACL tear last year. Was really, really good. And now you got Rodgers, hopefully healthy at quarterback. It should only be even better offense. And I love that for Breece Hall. I'm excited to see him this year. He's an S tier running back, at least in my opinion. And then next up is Blake Corum, who I see being a B tier running back. I think he'll be very solid. It might be a little high to predict him B tier because of the Rams offense. They probably are going to be comfortable just passing the ball or giving it to Kyren. But I just can't see a world where Blake Corum doesn't have at least some role in that offense. So, I don't know. Let's actually drop him down to C tier. That's probably more consistent with the guys I've ranked in C tier, to be honest. But I could see him being B tier. I think there's too many guys ahead of him. I mean, Kyren Williams is awesome. You still have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. You got guys in that offense, and it's hard to take away snaps from guys, or at least not snaps, but targets from guys that good. Unless Kyren goes down, I do see him still having a good year for Blake Corum, but I think more C tier than B tier. Next is Elijah Mitchell, who, in my opinion, is going to go D tier. He was decent at one point, but I just don't think his role is very big in this offense anymore. I believe the 49ers also drafted a running back like Isaac Guerendo, who could potentially take snaps away from Mitchell as a backup running back. So I'm not sold on his production or anything at this point. He's going to go D tier. Next is Kenneth Walker, who's going to go A tier. I think Kenneth Walker is actually a great running back. And also at the end, I will zoom out so you guys can see the whole thing, just for the record. I think Walker's awesome. The Seahawks offense is very, very solid as well. So he's going to go A tier. Next is Braylon Allen, who's going to go C tier, the rookie running back for the Jets. I don't see him having a ton of work. And if he does, I see it being similar to Blake Corum, who we put in C tier. So to be consistent, I'm going to have him in C tier as well. Derrick Henry is next. And Derrick Henry is one where, like, you could put him S tier, and I don't think you would really, like, I mean, I'm sure people would disagree with me, but I think people could understand the reasoning, because Derrick Henry, while being older, has still proven to put up great numbers, and now he's in an incredible offense to where you can run all kinds of options with him and Lamar. I think he'll get plenty of goal line carries. So, I don't know. Here's what we're going to do, because I did this for the two Panthers running backs in B tier. I'm going to leave Derrick Henry in S tier, but I would understand if you put him down here and put Saquon here. I'd understand if you did this and put Devon Achane there. I would understand doing this. There's a lot of different things you can do. So actually what we'll do is we'll leave it like that. You guys let me know what player from A tier would you bring up to S tier, or what player from even B tier or lower would you move up to S tier. I'd like to actually know that. Next is Justice Hill, who I think is a solid running back, but because of Derrick Henry, he's going to go C tier. The same as Keaton Mitchell. Here's the thing. I think those guys can contribute for sure, but not enough to have production on the level of the guys in B tier, at least in my opinion. Those guys have showed a lot, but now you're below Derrick Henry, and an offense with Lamar, who's also going to take his own snaps at, running the ball, and obviously still going to be passing the ball too. So I don't see anything crazy for them this year. Finally, it is James Cook, who is going to go in A tier and round out the tier list. So you guys should be able to see the whole thing like this. Let me know anything you guys agree or disagree with. Again, that is the top 4. Let me know who your 5th would be in that S tier, or if you'd have a different S tier altogether. Thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Plenty of other rankings on the way and other NFL content just like that. So I would appreciate all the support there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.